This place seemed to have been created from a fantasy world. There is a mysterious place in another world that lies between the human and spirit worlds. It is full of large green trees and lush landscapes that enhance its beauty. There is also a remarkably beautiful woman who approaches the tree at the top and turns to face the man who is following her. She tells him that sometimes spirit trees need to be trimmed, so she calls him to do the work. With a confident step forward, he called the woman by the name of Elder Spirit and smiled at a book in the center of the magic wand. He then summoned a strong wind to give him the ability to chop down the trees in front of him. Two kids in the back watched in shock as the man chopped the tree in half with a sudden change in wind speed that resembled a sharp knife. They named the man Sensei, or Master, and ran to him with excitement as soon as they saw the miracle and let out a loud cry. When he finished, the Great Spirit came to her and thanked him for his help. The man, who was happy to see the children laughing, looked at them and called them spirit children who would eventually possess such power. However, he also taught them the important lesson that it's not about winning before the children do the casting, because they had such powerful spells that they had to consider the consequences of the magic used. All of the children listened to him carefully and nodded in response. After that, he went back to his house, where we learn that the man is an Aizen master, not just any wizard, who has spent the last 20 years seeking sanctuary in a different world. A little girl with fair ears turns to face the Aizen master as he approaches the house, beaming at the sight of him. She was a spirit by the name of Rina. She was a long-lived species, who was employed by Aizen as his apprentice. She joyfully welcomed him and informed him that he had received another letter from someone. The man was unsurprised and brought the girl in to discuss things. However, the magician informed her that he would be traveling around the globe before they could enter. The girl, who had been anticipating his sudden confession, was taken aback by it and responded in the same way. She asked him why he had made such a sudden plan, to which the prophet replied that it had been 20 years since he had been called to the other world due to the devil's sword falling ill, but that he was now feeling better every day and that he wanted to pursue it. Subsequently, he opened his office door and revealed to Rina the mountain of unread correspondence stacked on his desk. She was taken aback by the size of the stack. The girl remembered that she had read those letters earlier and that they had all contained positive news, when Aizen slyly replied that he had received letters every month from all of his students reporting to him about their youth. Thus, she requested that Aizen read them again. Aizen granted her request, and the girl started reading about the 100 geniuses of Aizen's victory after serving Aizen. With the knowledge and wisdom they possessed, all of them were placed in highly esteemed positions where they have the ability to make a difference, some becoming leaders, others generals, masters, and scientists, for example. Each of them modestly wrote their father letters, in which they quietly acknowledged their achievements in the human realm. Rina was happily reading the letters when her wise master interrupted. Her teacher confided that he wanted to see the world his students had created, but he decided to travel alone and observe the amazing developments from a distance because he knew that if he told them about his arrival, they would make a big deal out of it, and he would end up annoying their classical father. The young girl gave in to the lure of exploring the human world, and Aizen acknowledged that he had first-hand knowledge of it. Following the witch's hand-raising and request for letters. As the room filled with letters began to float, Rina became ecstatic and turned to watch amusement. He chose her first stop on his global tour based on one of the envelopes he was holding. He quit his youth apprenticeship the following day, but the girl was too eager to see the world of humans and volunteered for their upcoming journey, not knowing what they would find here. Rina was clearly an eager little girl, and we could understand her excitement at seeing the world from her behavior. Rina wore a backpack while Aizen wore his old clothes and his signature wand. Aizen patiently waited for Rina to get ready. When he called her name, the young girl hurried to the corridor and quickly apologized, but the witch was too ticklish to do so. The wizard turned around as they were leaving the house and entering the verdant plains, and asked his former apprentice one last time if she truly wanted to follow him. Since there were no more assignments, Reen did not follow, but she happily decided to go with him, explaining that she wanted to take care of his everyday needs even though she didn't want him to be there. It was adorable, and this kind of loyalty is very uncommon to see these days. Rena was thrilled that her mentor valued her, and saw that she had prepared for the day. The witch expressed relief and expressed his happiness that she had followed him. After a considerable amount of time, Eisen utilized his ability to summon the Gate of Light, and all of a sudden, a massive magical door that glowed like a mysterious thing emerged in front of them. The boy admitted that he was more excited than he had previously thought, but as the two prepared to pass through the door, the elder spirit unexpectedly materialized next to the woods. She inquired Eisen if the witch answered in the affirmative that they intended to depart. Eisen concurred with her, suggesting that it might be because time operates differently in other worlds. The world spirit elder expressed gratitude to Eisen for his excellent care of the kids, saying that they soon went to see the wise witch and thanked him for everything. Ultimately, the kind spirit provided him with the door. Otherwise, the world remained open to him, and his children would be more resilient and astute upon Eisen's return. After shaking hands with the elder ghost, Eisen eventually entered the mysterious door without knowing what lay beyond, or what the actual world would hold. Meanwhile, back in the human world, a bearded guy wearing an opulent crown celebrated in the lovely city of Ray. A jaded priest with a crystal ball in his hand was staring at their king in disbelief as the man went on to brag about his accomplishments. Eventually, the priest exclaimed that their years of devotion had paid off and that the Eisen master, who was prophesied to be able to defeat the demon's sword, had returned as the Duke of Dario, the king. Dario formerly highly respected the apprentice of Eisen, who received all of his knowledge and accomplishments from the wise magician. For this reason, Dario invested years and a lot of money in his search for his master. Dario ordered his guards to be in the city and look for whoever went by the name Master Eisen. The king plans to offer Master Eisen the warmest welcome and all he deserves for his excellent work now that he's back. But the sage old wizard, who plans to keep his visit a secret, will consider himself lucky in the eyes of the common people. On the other hand, he might think that Eisen hadn't visited the human world in 20 years, and didn't know its people any longer. A young girl confesses that she has heard that humans have changed significantly in recent years. Light shone at the magic gate, Eisen and Rena's first glimpse of the human world. The wizard is amazed by the sight of the metropolis, and refers to it as Pioneer Metropolis. Eisen was in awe as the young girl told him that she had an incredible memory, and could read every letter the geniuses sent to their master. Because of this, the girl would serve as an encyclopedia for their journey. Despite his interest in her, he still wanted to explore the city before they left, and Rena noticed that the book on the Eisen staff was glowing. Eisen, however, remained unmoved and said that the book had a sealed impression. The girl was startled and scared by the power, and to be honest, we weren't told anything about it because we didn't know why the power was sealed. The wizard's shining staff gleamed more, indicating that they were moving in the proper way, and Eisen understood what he was doing because he grinned widely while Rena, who was astonished and nervous, stood at his side and watched. When the witch at last spared me and his student from our agony, he said that although he had defeated a demon sword 20 years prior, he had sustained serious injuries and had lost the ability to control his powers. Because of this, he hidden part of his strength and sealed it away someplace where Master Eisen halted in front of a massive tree. He noticed that his staff was sparkling just like the sun. He then turned the staff in the direction of the tree, and the poor little girl was scared by what she saw. Eisen gazed at it so intently that it appeared as though the page had detached itself from the tree and become part of the book, as though it had always been there. Rena was taken aback and inquired as to whether his powers were full. The sorceress enthusiastically responded, mentioning that the final page of her book stated that retrieval was complete. The girl got excited and inquired about his strength after realizing that all of his powers had returned. The curious girl couldn't help but ask if the witch was leaving, and the small troll looked towards them with a pure hunger for blood. The wizard then commented that the wild beast should be on the outskirts of the city rather than in the middle of the forest. Eisen sheepishly replied that he wasn't very strong yet, as the power amplification only increased his magic slightly, not as much as she thought. The young girl challenged the troll, and as she snapped her fingers, a magical beam materialized. She inquired of her lord if he desired that he look after them. The witch, however, paused and amusedly swung his stick in front of him, wanting to test out his newly acquired powers. When Eisen opens his book and conjures forth magic, 3 terrible creatures charge the two. The monsters became fireballs as flaming spears struck them and pierced the atmosphere. The trolls burned to ash and wailed in agony. With his power more potent than ever, Rena gazed up at her mentor in wonder. Eisen turned to face the flames and observed that they were getting more intense than before, realizing that even the young girl could see how powerful it was. He then concluded that amplification must be the cause when the witch approached the dying trolls and took a shimmering object from one of their chests. Eisen believed the magic stone to be extremely valuable, and it could be traded for riches and other luxuries. After overcoming their small challenge, they proceeded to the city and followed the tranquil stream's pristine, stone-paved path. The short-haired girl searched for something in the grass, but when she couldn't find it, she became concerned about all the people trapped in the warehouse. The witch remarked on how beautiful the suburbs were, and Ren agreed, observing how well kept everything was. Suddenly, they heard someone else finding something in the bushes next to them. When she saw 2 people observing her, she inquired as to whether they had seen a key. Eisen, incidentally, responded that they had only recently arrived and hadn't noticed anything, which alarmed the girl even more. The girl declined the wizard's offer to look for the key because she was too kind and didn't want to break up their journey, but Eisen playfully replied that it wouldn't take him long to find the key. This made the girl nervous, and he grinned widely because we now knew that Eisen was untouchable thanks to his newly updated wand. The girl informed the witch that she had been gathering herbs in the field when a lizard-like creature called Cobalt arrived. She had to drive it away, but then her belt's keychain broke, and she didn't realize the key was missing. Eisen persuaded her to accept his assistance by bending over and putting his hands on the floor. He requested direction to the key on the girl's belt, and commanded the natural world to give him messages of wind and light to surround her. The girl was shocked and at first remained silent. Then, the sorcerer rose, pointed to a wooden stump, and asked her if that was where she had put her key. The girl hesitantly replied yes, when she was asked if she had discovered it, but Eisen informed her that at the moment he could only confirm that he knew where the key was. The girl looked around the dying tree and found the key easily. Did he point again to a fallen log near the bushes and tell her to try looking there? Apparently, when the girl was chasing the cobalt, the key got caught on a branch and broke. I don't know about you, but I'll definitely need it to use this spell the next time I lose my eye. The girl asked him if he saw her past and future through the magic he had just used, since Eisen wanted to keep a low profile. He told her that the magic he had just used was not high-end magic, and that this kind of divination could be made with any magic. Excitedly, she ran back towards the witch and thanked him, but the witch told her that it wasn't necessary, as she was the one who found it. The Earth Spirit recalled that finding lost objects is similar to using simple divination magic. As the girl pursued Cobalt in the meadow, the key became loose due to a protruding branch on the log. The girl inquired as to whether he could be a well-known Master Eisen, but Eisen promptly clarified that he was not, and he could only hear the voice of the spirit of nature. The wizard pondered whether this was the first time he had seen a prophecy before he left, since there weren't many people in the area. When the girl told him that he must be one of those spirit summoners, he suddenly realized that he needed to be humble and keep his mouth shut. She then asked for their names, and the wizard introduced himself as Aizen and pointed to his apprentice, introducing her as Reen. The girl promised to repay the favor and inquired as to whether they were going to stay in the city or were just visiting. When they revealed plans to stay temporarily, the wizard revealed himself as Reen. The girl was expressing her gratitude and telling them that she would see them off, hoping to repay their kindness as they continued their journey. The witch commented that the girl was a hyperactive and incomprehensible one, and Ren agreed, considering how thrilled she was to find her key. She then told him that he was fine as usual. She suggested that they visit the alchemist garden in the Global Guild when they had time before finally parting ways. Assisting the girl, Sensei said that she was in a great mood following their enjoyable little vacation. They were delighted to visit such a lovely city and meet such kind people. They felt utterly agitated and unintelligent when they saw it again. Aizen agreed with Rina when they arrived at Saja Dale Explorer City, telling her that he was glad the building's location stayed the same as they had planned. Rina said she felt comfortable entering the city because there were no barriers around her. When Aizen noticed that the building was bigger than before, he called it a branch of the Golden Guild. The Global Guild is a professional association that compiles data about professionals worldwide. Upon registering, individuals receive a global card that functions as a travel ID. Remembering that the general manager of the guild master had written to Aizen thanking him and discussing how to improve the wizard quarters facilities, Aizen felt pleased when Rina nodded at him and mentioned that she recalled their joint consultations and was astonished to see the results for herself. As soon as they entered the building, they proceeded straight to the front desk, where a kind woman welcomed them. Aizen mentioned that they wanted to create a guild card, and the woman inquired as to why they had come. Curious, the woman inquired as to what Aizen would use the card for. He eagerly stated that he was an explorer, and that Dre had dreams of touring the world. When he asked her why this surprised her, she said that not many people were adventurous these days. As Sensei went on to tell her that 30 of people were once risk-takers who explored the world in search of knowledge, but that since there was peace in the empire, people were no longer willing to take such risks, he felt at ease. She expressed her admiration for their bravery and said that she missed people like them. In all honesty, she sounds incredibly amiable and in love with Sensei. Suddenly recalling her work, she gave them a form to fill out with their names and jobs. After seeing the form, Rina turned to face her teacher and said, "There are a lot of different occupations written on it." When the woman questioned what was wrong, Aizen replied that he could not remember the name of the work as a witch. He also mentioned that Aizen formerly had a card, but it was destroyed during the conflict with the bad god. Aizen now needed to construct a new card before departing. The woman muttered that the last witch died 15 years ago, making them extinct, when the receptionist inquired if he was really going to declare himself a witch. Sensei wondered in confusion whether that was a negative thing. If someone identifies as a witch, they will be pursued by the afterlife. The Reaper will be called, and then even more terrible things will occur. Both of them were shocked and terrified by this. Sensei knew that there had been many witches when he left the human world, but now that all of them had vanished forever, they both stood motionless as the receptionist warned them that identifying as Aizen masters would have dire repercussions. The king had commanded that anyone claiming to be an Aizen master would be taken to the palace. After hearing the receptionist's account of someone who had once proclaimed himself a wizard and been detained by the royal guards, Rina were concerned and astonished at how close they had come to disclosing their identity and declining to be classified as a profession that is currently quite contentious. Aizen glanced at the professional cards again and eventually decided on a work that was not too weird but powerful enough to let him travel. He covered himself by stating that he was just kidding, and that he planned to find another job at the location the small king would probably find out. He registered as Isan Otis and made the decision to follow a spiritual path. The receptionist pulled out his identity card and stamped it heavily, granting Eisen permission to use one once more. The girl gave the card to its new owner while grinning constantly and seemed enchanted. She continued to point at them both till the finish. She carried a tray from the counter containing 5 crystals and arranged them side by side. Receptionist Eisen cautiously remarked that it must be true that Eisen made his first card because of how naive he was. Eisen inquired about the device, and the girl revealed that it was a magic power research board that measured one's strength level. The wizard responded that he had an outdated understanding of how cards were made, but the world had changed, and the guild wanted to make sure that the employees sent on missions were the best to avoid negatively impacting the company's reputation. The wizard became anxious as the girl noticed his disguise and realized he was in danger. When the receptionist continued by stating that the inventor was a highly respected hero and advisor to the guild master, the shy Eisen turned to face the girl and told her that she had read about one of her students developing a device that could measure magic power. The young student nodded in agreement. While they were discussing good PR in the magical world, Eisen turned to face Rina. Eisen, however, asked the girl where she should touch the girl before she could draw any conclusions. She said that he should touch the crystal, and that if any of them shattered, he would receive AK rank. If they all broke, he would receive AG rank. The average rank, however, was H. The moment Eisen touched the board, all of the crystals burst before the girl could say anything further. As the entire guild gasped at the miracle in front of them, the receptionist was startled and shocked. The incredibly bashful wizard then inquired as to what came next. Eisen grinned, but he knew that the board was nothing in comparison to his power. He touched the crystals, and once more, each of them exploded with his magic. She then eagerly replied that there was another board that distinguished between AF rank and AD rank. When the receptionist arrived with another board, everyone held their breath in shock as they gathered around him to witness the unusual scene in front of them. However, this upset Eisen because he didn't want many spectators. Everyone waited in suspense this time since Eisen was worried about this board over all others. When Eisen touched the board gently, crystal broke once more, earning the board AC. Many were surprised, and the receptionist reluctantly reported what had happened. If Eisen received a B rating, he was required to notify the king. But when the witch learned of his plans, she reasoned that it wouldn't be good if the king discovered that he was in charge of his magic and the B crystal didn't break for whatever reason. Eisen's C-grade rating disappointed the girl, who was interested in him. Even nevertheless, this rank remained exceptional, and everyone continued to be extremely happy to compliment him on his power. When the receptionist approached him, the witch thanked everyone and recognized how crucial it was to keep his magic power from reaching the king's ears. She shyly acknowledged that he could be a B rank with a bit more magic. Eisen granted her wish, so Rina hurried to her mentor and presented her card identifying herself as a magician. He informed her that her strength was her rank, but since the Council of Kings did not recognize his name, Eisen said he could obtain a higher rank. The young girl rejected the suggestion, claiming that having the same rank as him was undesirable. The receptionist appeared more presentable than when she left, but a man behind her identified himself to them as Dominique, a well-known spiritualist who would receive Eisen training as a parting gift from the guild. The man gave the novices a tender glance, and we felt bad for Dominique because we knew what was going to happen to him. The receptionist laughed and said that the guild specifically hires professionals to teach and provide books as a favorite pastime. Then she turned to Rina and said that all the wizards were busy that day, so her training would come whenever the little girl appreciated Eisen's small talk with his new teacher. Eisen and Rena were both surprised to hear about the strange gift from the guild. The spokesman went on to say that every time a beginner receives their card, they must take mandatory classes according to their profession. The guild wants to ensure that their employees have the knowledge and skills necessary for the job. Dominique, the small child, was content to learn that Eisen was a humble and modest person who chose to learn from an E-ranker despite having a much higher rank than him. Later on in class, the young spiritualist revealed to Eisen the nature of his actual work. It involved connecting with spirits and using their magical abilities. To further illustrate this, he reached into his rucksack. The teacher continued by explaining that Eisen will learn how to speak with spirits as a blazing fireball flew out. Eisen observed everything with great interest and started to wonder whether the voices were communicating with spirits. Dominique clarified that there are a number of techniques to learn how to connect with spirits, including the spiritualist would offer the spirit a meal known as magic in exchange for information from a small fireball. He then turned to Eisen and asked him to recall the mantra that Dominique had used. The witch then uttered magical words, and suddenly the spirit shone differently than before, leaving Dominique speechless. Though he acknowledged that it made sense for someone with AC rank, he was taken aback by the magnitude of his strength. The master wizard looked at the two lovingly and said, "How trusting their relationship was." But then he asked Dominique if she had spoken to her friend who was listening to this. Eisen was kind though, and replied that it was just because of how good a teacher he was. Dominique, the veteran, was happy to hear such praise coming from a powerful witch. He then turned his attention to his spirit and caressed the fireball, and in return made happy noises. The spiritualist was taken aback, and Eisen continued, saying that the fireball spirit had spoken to him frequently. When Dominique heard that Eisen was able to communicate with spirits, she was shocked and asked Eisen if this was genuine, to which Eisen replied in the affirmative. With great excitement, the spiritual veteran asked if he could translate what the fireball was saying to him. Reaching into his soul, Eisen did so, and the fireball spoke. When the spirit became human, he informed his teacher that the fireball was appreciative of him. His teacher was taken aback when he said that he would fulfill his responsibility even if Dominique only gave him a few magic spheres. However, after giving his companion a perplexed look, the teacher eventually understood, and the fireball began to bounce rapidly. Dominique turned to face the renowned wizard in disguise and thanked him. He continued by saying that only highly knowledgeable individuals could converse with spirits, even if after working with them for so long, he could only comprehend a limited number of phrases. Although it's astounding that a novice can comprehend and translate a whole language, we shouldn't be surprised by this from a skilled magician. Eisen thanked his new buddy for the great praise, but Dominique's son was taken aback by the breadth of his abilities. But he went on with pride, saying that given Eisen's advanced spiritual talent, he would give him the go-ahead for turning into a decent person and thanking his teacher for all that he had taught him. The two cheerfully said goodbye to each other once more at Rena Bar, where she greeted her mentor and showed him a map of every place they had visited during their week as Pioneer Town residents. As they were talking about their intentions, there was an abrupt interruption. When they turned around, they saw the girl they had earlier assisted standing in front of them, grinning broadly. Yura, the alchemist, identified herself, told them about the new spiritualist in the guild who had been disturbing the residents with their strong magic, and expressed concern, asking if her little deeds had made a big impression. However, Eureka claimed that she was friends with nearly every guild professional, so she learned about them through them before meeting them. Eisen graciously thanked her for the offer, but added that he wanted to find a place to stay before all the desirable locations were reserved. She then invited them to visit her home, so they could see all the alchemy instruments that could aid them in their future adventures. After revealing to the two that her shop doubled as an inn, and that they may stay there for free because they were so kind, the young alchemist, taken aback, turned to face the apprentice, who nodded in accord. Eureka took the two to her business, which was only a short stroll from the guild. He remarked on how big the store was, and the alchemist told him it was the biggest in the city. When they walked in, a worker pointed to the two people behind Eureka and hailed her as president, asking how she had returned so quickly. Eureka sent him a sharp look and said she was lucky to have met him. Before revealing herself fully as Eureka Griffin, president of the Alchemist Company, Sensei asked her to explain herself. Meanwhile, the student and Sensei sat on the sofa, waiting for the president to return. Next to them, two workers began discussing the rumors that led to the witch. A long-haired worker told her colleague that she was a spiritualist, and Eureka's friend told him that she was actually a novice. Rina noticed people chatting about them, and told their mentor that the situation was starting to resemble that in the guild. Sensei agreed and told her that he was surprised by how quickly the rumors spread. Aizen was shocked by how quickly gossip spread when Eureka returned to the human world, because it was quite funny with a man right behind her. She told them that their rooms would be ready soon and asked if it was okay to talk to them. The long-haired worker wondered how the spiritualist could help the president. The man turned to face Urare and apologized for bothering her, thanking her for her assistance. Sensei asked why the man was standing at the outer city limits, to which he replied that he was searching for potions for his negotiations, though the potion in a shop was enough to make the decision. He directed them and thanked them for their assistance. The president humbly told him that he didn't need to thank her because she was the one who had apologized for the mistake that had cost him the key to the magic warehouse that day. The man expressed his gratitude, and Rina and Aizen saved the company negotiation and told them it was a very important deal. He was extremely appreciative when the witch informed him that she had only discovered the key when Eureka giggled. She then turned to face them and said that she recognized the person who had trained her when she spotted Aizen. Rin was breathless to hear that teacher Eureka was one of the 100 heroes, to which Eureka replied that her teacher was the president of Kuniya Sensei's magical university. She told them that her teacher was one of the 100 heroes, who went on to become the dean of the university, which is why she did the exact same thing. Recalling Mel as a vibrant wizard president, she went on to say that he attended the closest branch school rather than the capital's main school. Her teacher not only lived in the capital but also traveled extensively for work, spending the last few years as a professor at a university outside of the city. Sajid Dale Mel was sitting in the president's chamber at the Southern Magic University branch in Pioneer City when an employee entered and gave her the fellowship report for this week. It informed her that a suspicious visitor who wished to meet her was masking their face behind a magic mask. When the visitor arrived, Mel greeted him as Duke and mentioned that it was unusual for her to travel this far from the capital. Mel then instructed her to let the guest in since he had already been in touch with her. The witch was taken aback and inquired as to whether Lord Aizen would make a comeback when she mentioned that she worked close by and decided to pay them a visit. However, the Duke told her that fortune-telling did not always predict whether or not the messenger would become their lord, and that everyone who arrived was expected to be warmly welcomed, particularly if authorized by their lord the king, and that the guild had been instructed to do so. It was endearing to see how happy these kids were to meet the father figure in their lives. The witch angrily remarked that she had to get rid of something so that he could welcome his master, and the Duke answered that he too wanted to welcome Lord Aizen properly. He continued by telling her that there was a weekly report on the number of professionals of each rank appearing in the city's guild, and that he could also check the distribution of each job and rank them. Mel approached the window and informed him that she had heard he was the master of the Global Fellowship in Pioneer City. Mel responded that being a master is quite difficult but also fun because he gets to discover and teach children with ideas that are different from those in the capital city. The king responded by expressing gratitude that more people were looking forward to the future, but Mel alerted him to the fact that something was wrong. He explained that they were running out of mages because there were more monsters in Pioneer City than there were people with strong physical defenses, and Duke noticed this and expressed concern that it might jeopardize public safety. Mel was told that once he got to the capital, he would think about sending a professional magician in the morning. Rena was still asleep when Aizen woke up, which was strange because she usually woke up early. She felt bad when she eventually woke up and promptly apologized to Sensei for being late. He encouraged her to unwind, but her apprentice was embarrassed that even though she was here to take care of her master, she was unable to even get out of bed in time to see him. She promised that in the future she would wake up at least at the same time as the witch after the witch reassured her that everything would be all right. Rena's efforts were greatly appreciated by him, so after breakfast he invited her to go with her around town. If you're still not convinced, watch how Aizen and Rena interact over the course of the following several hours, as they visit the market and explore the city. Enjoy specialty beverages while touring farms and other sites. Eventually, they ascended to the top of the Alchemist Garden to take in the breathtaking view of the city and the mountains. They remarked that the branch of the Magic University is situated behind the hill, where his former student used to be. Aizen kindly recalled Mel as a wonderful witch, and he assured his student that he would set them up. When Rena learned this, she was taken aback and questioned whether it was worthwhile to spend so much valuable time on such matters. Aizen advised her to establish new relationships instead, and the young girl promptly thanked him for his guidance and effort. They both agreed to have lunch at a surprising location when the guild bell abruptly rung, signaling noon. Rena interrupted him to ask if they could choose how they wanted to placate the spirit. He cheerfully said that he would entrust all the details to a strong sorcerer. He explained to them that typically some strategy like subjection or denial was utilized. He hoped that the three of them would work meticulously to investigate the matter further, and that they would get paid extra for any information gathered. If only we could get paid to do magic. Aizen asked Kia and Dominique if they knew why the situation had deteriorated. He claimed that the spirit was not used to being wild and angry for no reason. Kia agreed. She said that they would have to calm the spirit's psyche in order to understand what was causing the irrational behavior. Aizen was a little taken aback, but Dominique downplayed it by stating that he was AC-ranked warrior, which is why he might have appeared at ease. Dominique stressed that the risks were high and that the rookies weren't anxious at all. Following their conversation, they headed into the forest. The tornado was large enough to be seen from a distance, so they didn't have to go very far. Everyone was astounded by the size and power of the spirit. However, they had to go to the center to find the spirit in order to quiet it. Dominique opened her purse, pulled out the fireball spirit, and cast a spell. The spirit instantly surrounded the seasoned trio in a protective sphere. Then he requested them to follow him as he turned to face Aizen. They could see clearly through the protective sphere, which would also block the sand and allow them to walk freely without being bothered by the breeze. A clever wizard inquired as to whether the bubble might shield them from heavier materials, but a veteran answered that it could only stop little objects like sand. Nevertheless, the witch cast a spell that Dominique was unable to pronounce. Aizen, an exceptional wizard, instructed his new companion to duck down, as the stone spirit had indicated that a dangerous pole would fly their way. Dominique was perplexed, but he obeyed, and sure enough, a dangerous pole did fly their way. Cockiness boldly declared that he could hear spirits more easily than see them with his own eyes. Dominique, an established celebrity, complimented him on his skills, drawing everyone's attention. The spirit of the tornado was creating extremely strong winds for the egg-shaped object, but as the three of them approached the egg, it started to fracture. They all watched in awe as the skull cracked open, revealing a lady inside. Dominique gasped, and he revealed the identity of the woman, a senior spirit, no less, before anybody could question him. Dominique wasn't surprised to see her again, but he was anxious because he knew that he and the two novices wouldn't be able to handle such a strong spirit. She knew that these spirits had the ability to change their bodies and structures, which is why the guild wasn't able to fully manifest the spirit's power. The senior spirit rose into the air, and everyone watched in awe. Even though he was the most experienced of the three, the young man attempted to protect the novices first, so they could escape and be safe. Senior spirits, to the best of Dominique's knowledge, only existed in remote areas and were difficult to defeat. At least AB rank was required to fight them. When the senior spirit gestured toward them, he would tighten his protective bubble. He was thrown into a tree by the bubble, which flew like a straw. Even in anguish, he worried about the novices and their safety, even though he knew that the spirit was far powerful than him and his magic. The unfortunate woman attempted to stand up, but she was frozen in place by another shot from the spirit. He felt safe, but as he looked up, he saw that they were both standing untouched by the fierce wind. They shouted for their new friends to go away while screaming in terror, but Eisen and Rena did not move. The elder spirit raised his hand to call a strong wind blow their way as the sorcerer chanted a spell, but this time Eisen lifted and flipped his wand to break the terrible spell of the strong sorcerer. The angry spirit was taken aback to see such powerful magic as he sent a series of consecutive wind strikes. Standing tall and firm as Dominique stared at him in shock, he asked his new friend how he did it with a mischievous grin. Eisen replied that he only used a little bit of magic, when in fact he used ancient prophecy magic that turned his wand into a powerful tool capable of cutting through anything. Eisen, however, was able to defend himself just as before, stunning us with his ability to move forward with grace and accuracy while cutting through the wind like a master. The veteran showed his gratitude and asked the girl in front of him how they became so skilled in combat. The spirit stood in front of them, but even told them that they didn't need to fight with him anymore because he would talk to them. Meanwhile, Renee ran towards Dominique, shielding him from all the dangerous debris flying towards him. Dominique was shocked to see the witch and attempted to speak with her, but the witch simply smiled serenely, and Eisen Master moved a few distance in the direction of the ghost. The ghost gestured toward her in its own tongue. Eisen requested a moment to converse with the serene female spirit. While the female spirit was still experiencing a fleeting consciousness, he smiled. Dominique got up and hurried to assist his new friend, using Spirit Fireball, his adorable yet courageous pet. The next day, however, the enraged spirit turned his attention to the witch in front of him and recognized Eisen as the Master Eisen, who had defeated the evil god while instructing the Spirit Queen in magic. He was the reason why spirits had such power today, the angry spirit claimed, adding that she was bothered by human language and had no interest in speaking to humans. Since Instructor Eisen was well known in their realm, it turned out that the senior spirits were his admirers. Although Eisen accepted everything, he was incredibly modest and said he was unaware that he was regarded as a hero. Dominique worriedly asked the witch whether he was okay during their conversation, to which Eisen cheerfully responded that the senior spirit was kinder than she had assumed and that the spirit had explained the typical situation. Because of the effects of magic, humans are unable to understand their language. Nevertheless, Teacher Eisen is so closely linked to the spirits that he speaks their language with ease. He didn't hold the spirit too much responsible for the tornado, because he understood that different species have different perspectives on the same situation. Eisen then asked why she created strong winds in the human world, to which the embarrassed spirit replied that she hadn't actually intended to create strong winds, but rather a gentle breeze to attract human attention. The following day, he clarified that the demonic creatures in the forest produce poison. Eisen was taken aback to learn that poison is a unique form of magical power that, when inhaled by demonic creatures, strengthens and empowers them. If humans inhale it, it can cause abnormalities in their bodies. The substance is essentially the remains of the evil god, who was dispersed throughout the world during the war and consumed by the beasts. Eisen said that he understood the whole situation, but wanted more information about the infected animals. And now that they have my small organs, making them dangerous creatures that can spread diseases. For example, think of a zombie spirit. He then said that he wanted to create wind to keep humans away from the infected place, but he now realizes that he went a little overboard. Since Spit has been looking into this matter for a while, he has assigned a propet to the demon-like mole wasp with short legs and a huge horn. This is because the propet's body can conceal itself beneath trees, and because of spirit attacks that aren't precise, he keeps missing his target, who is now the leader of these wild animals. However, he hasn't been able to vanquish them thus far. Dominique watches the spirits exhibit various behaviors and facial expressions. He can't comprehend the dialogue, but he makes an effort to deduce what's going on from the body language. Stood by him, pleading with him to exercise patience and faith in the abilities of spirits. But when Teacher Eisen added that the spirit could halt the wind and would take care of the demon beast, the spirit was taken aback and overjoyed at how strong the witch was to aid her. When it was all over, she promised to thank him, and to keep an eye on him from a distance for his protection. The astonished Dominique thought that Eisen had forced the spirit to depart when she suddenly took off, but Eisen clarified that he was traveling alone and had given them a task to finish. The witch spent the next 5 minutes going over everything with his pupil and former instructor. Dominique was embarrassed that she misunderstood the good spirit, but since he was a saint, he soothed her by saying that her suspicions were justified. Luckily, Dominique felt a weight release off her shoulders. She then used her particular expertise to explain that the boss would be difficult to overcome, but that the horned mole was a D rank and they were both C ranks. Dominique, however, was certain that the two could handle him. She then offered to fight with Rena and help with the objective. Rena was appreciative of his offer, but as they were speaking, she heard something and turned to face the forest. He followed suit, declaring that they already knew where she was, and that there was no need to search for her. Suddenly, though, a monstrous horned V and its army materialized out of the earth. The three of them patiently gazed at the horned VO. Dominique was about to take a step, but Eisen stopped her, pulled her back, and said that there were too many horned VS for them to combat. Eisen was taken aback by the large number, but deduced that miasma was probably interfering with their ability to reproduce. The creatures advanced against them, as Dominique reasoned that they needed to vanquish their boss before they could succeed. And with that, the nasty ground rat drew closer to them, as they all got ready to battle against the sensei who was in front of them. When wild animals invade the village, 3 people stood side by side, ready to defend it at all costs. Eisen, Renee, and Dominique are the traditional protectors, selfless saviors who stand by each other, and they stared at the beasts in terror while attempting to come up with a plan for themselves. Before Eisen interfered, the horned groundhog reproduced quickly and nearly overcame the spiritualist's protection. Dan used his staff to deflect the beast's blow, but a second, M-shaped monster was waiting behind him, preparing to strike his wide-open jaws. Dominique attempted to alert him, but Rena arrived in time and used her sword to sever the beast. Rena's master thanked her, but she stayed modest because she knew she could defeat the monster on her own. "You go, girl." Rena thanked Dominique for telling them to deal with the rear of the largest boss, and the one who gave birth to miasma, since he could handle the ones close. Dominique was impressed by her ability to take on her opponent head-on. But in the end, Eisen observed the monster's actions and sensed its anxiety as the mole appeared to slow down, scraping the ground with its massive hooves and practically refusing to approach the 3 people. Eisen couldn't allow that happen, so he used the power of words to ask for assistance from the atmosphere to make a sword with the sword after realizing that the creature was sending out a signal to escape. He wielded it through the wind, slicing through numerous animals simultaneously. Then, using his strength once more, he attacked the monster behind him and a few allies, killing them with a single, oddly satisfying strike in the most gory way imaginable. Standing in the center of the jungle, the creatures surrounding them are true to the monstrous bodies. After examining the harsh battlefield, which was littered with fallen trees and enormous, M-shaped demon-dug holes that seemed to be remnants of their past, the spiritualist was astounded by Master Aizen's strength and inquired about his origins. Aizen, learning the skills and honing them by listening to her inner guidance, humbly reminded him that such magical sources came from ancient times from the prophets and the retired Emperor Spirit's library of books. Dominique was struck by teacher Aizen's commitment and aptitude, and it even hinted that his abilities might be above the standard of a professional. Later, the tree received a call from Aizen realized that the landowner needed to notify the university and guild about this unusual situation after receiving a thank you note from a stranger for helping to save his farm ranch. They were shocked to discover that there was more than just a spirit responsible for the incident. Aizen witnessed Dominique holding his head and nearly falling. Master Aizen, however, realized his mistake just in time. The spiritualist informed him that this was the result of abusing power, and that it was shameful to be in this position. Aizen comforted her by pointing out that everyone experiences weariness differently, and that it was normal to feel fatigued at the same time. Master Aizen welcomed the landowner's invitation to try planting his plants, which had the ability to resurrect magical powers, and also accepted as a show of appreciation for sparing him from certain death. They then strolled to the landowner's residence, which was not far from their own. Aizen and Dominique thanked their host for the delicious feast he had prepared for them, and then said goodbye as he had to report to the guild. The charming small house is tucked away in an agricultural area where they all congregate to enjoy their food. Rina and her master decided to take things slow and enjoy more of the day, so they strolled around the grounds admiring the remarkable effects the plants produced and talking about it on their bodies and on Dominique, who appeared more energetic. However, they were encouraged to take their time because the host had done all the work. After consuming the low-level potion, Aizen thought he had recovered as much magical power as possible. He then instantly recalled a disciple who had become a master of agriculture by cultivating and enhancing crops. Master Aizen was delighted to have personally experienced the magic of the plant seeds, which were subsequently given to several farmers for crop improvement and research. This was far more exciting than reading about it in a letter. Ren was intrigued and excited when the book on her staff table started to spin and glow. Realizing that this had to be a reaction to the power her master kept nearby, the book started to glow next to her, emitting swirling puffs of light and forming symbols that resembled those in the book about the Aizen wand. Aizen and RNA's faces lit up with joy as they realized they had located Master Aizen's lost strength. Rina was astounded at how simple it was to regain the power of an Aizen master, but Aizen dismissed it as coincidental, saying he was shocked to find her in this state of power. He also made himself famous with the approval of the stored power, which started to show when the seal was given back to Master Aizen with the ability to fly and merge into the text of a book on his staff. Rina was thrilled to see her master in his best state because he had never been able to see him like that before. They both felt grateful for their successful completion of their tasks and relished the delicious food that left them feeling rejuvenated. The two turned through the book in search of the ability they had gained this time and discovered that the power they had just gained increased her divination range. Just as he was wrapping up his report to the guild on the day's activities, spiritualism claimed they had arrived at the perfect time, and the receptionist was taken aback to find the two of them in such good health, and inquired as to if they had suffered any injuries. Aizen and Rina denied having any. The woman expressed her happiness at being told that following the two's departure from the guild, the authorities were asked by the university to look into the strong winds that were occurring in the farmland because they suspected demonic participation. The university and the guild have been cooperating for some time. They now share information about the newest magical tools and magic that is only available at the university. However, there are occasionally annoyances, particularly when requests like this arise, and the guild may not have the reserves to handle them. When an old spirit and a horned mole covered in poison were involved, the situation became much more complicated, and the guild as a whole was on edge after the three were placed on request. A rescue party was being formed to handle any emergency situation. When Dominique returned to the guild unscathed from a dangerous mission, the crew was taken aback. Eisen was questioned by the receptionist about his experience with the elder spirit, which he had learned about from Dominique's master. While the crowd in the guild applauded him, and he accepted his actions without much thought, she praised him for handling the situation well, pointing out that no C-ranked adventurer could handle something like this. She also informed Eisen about the guild's detectives, who were able to see through the lies, having double-checked Dominique's report. Eisen was taken aback by her response and the reactions of people around her, since he had spent his entire life fighting monsters and communicating with spirits, and didn't seem to get what made her so exceptional. Eisen comforted her by telling her that it wasn't his fault for not knowing, and he was dealing with monsters of his own accord, so there was nothing to regret about such a sweet boy that the demons would disagree with. Master Eisen was thrilled to hear the news and asked Dominique for an explanation on how she would report the cases, as there seemed to be quite a few that needed to be reported. This time, the receptionist apologized for sending Eisen into a more dangerous situation than she and the authorities had anticipated, and put his life in danger. The spiritualist gave an overblown response to the events of the day, saying that she reported the case because it was the only way the situation could be resolved without causing significant harm. Eisen, the adventurer, was taken aback by the overwhelming response, despite the fact that he had proceeded without the guild's approval. The request was initially going to cost $5,000, but after negotiations with the authorities, Eisen and his party, Dominique, were able to raise it to $10,000. He felt embarrassed that they could only give that much, but Eisen told him that it was enough, and he would gladly accept it if it was given to him. He offers to split his gift with Dominique, who flatly refuses, telling him that he deserves the full gift. The request was fulfilled without conditions. The receptionist informed him that dealing with older spirits was traditionally quite expensive. She was then invited to dinner by Eisen, which the spiritualist accepted with pleasure. The scene shifted from the guild to the opulent setting of Southern Magic University, where Eureka visited President Mel's office to submit a report from the Global Guild. The child was thrilled to see her university professor again, even though it was her first time. The president offered to set up a meeting with her if it was merely to deliver a report, but Eureka preferred to take advantage of situations like these because she didn't want to cause more discomfort for her professor or interfere with the student's ability to learn from her. Mel noticed the girl staring at her and replied that she couldn't help it because her teacher's hair was still shining and beautiful as ever. Eureka always wanted to touch her hair, but the president thanked her for the praise, but denied her request because she is a gem. Mel then thought about how Eureka's relationship could interact with guilds and universities that could introduce them to valuable human resources. Someone who has a close friendship with spirits and forbids others from touching her hair for no reason is Mel. This is because Mel's hair possesses a magical spell that no one should ever touch and will be rejected if they do. She was quite intrigued about the report she was holding, which had been sent to the guild by the landowner and had caused yesterday's event. After reading the report, Mel came to the conclusion that our incidents involved both a poison source and spirits at the same time. Claiming that monsters were involved, Mel was relieved that no one was harmed. However, she questioned whether reporting the incident a little sooner could have stopped the chaos, suggesting that there was still room for improvement in the city and university's communication. Eureka is currently trying to persuade people that the system her professor and the 100 heroes created is clever and practical, and that it has made life much safer and easier. The president is appreciative of her teacher for letting her know that the majority of her work was done under the supervision of her teacher, the master of the 100 heroes, even though it will take some time for the community to get used to it. The president highlighted the guru he respected and discussed his desire to meet Mel, and he expressed his desire to be the same role model for his students as the teacher had been for him. When Mel looked back at the report, she was shocked to see that a C-rank spiritualist had successfully stopped the attack. She had never imagined that a C-rank spiritualist could be successful in their line of work, as most people associated with older spirits were the president or the head of security. To make matters worse, Eureka told Mel about rumors that had been going around among her friends about a brilliant spiritualist and magician who had recently moved to the area. The president is reportedly fascinated by this spiritualist and his abilities, and wants to meet him soon. The report indicated that the miasma Eureka was the reason behind the rise of demonic beasts. She also voiced concerns about the OMES Horned V, which drastically decreased the amount of alchemy materials she and her firm were using as food for other monsters. Mel realized that as a witch, she might become a more desirable target for these monsters and needed to be more cautious. The president and the alchemist agreed that improving communication between the city and the monster would improve the university and prevent such a situation from occurring in the future. The increased competition in the food chain also means that monsters will look for food elsewhere, which could increase the chances of encounters between humans and the monsters. A few days later, Eisen and his pupil were taking in all that the city had to offer while strolling through the streets. However, their leisurely walk quickly turned into an enigmatic adventure when they came across a massive monster with numerous eyes, a mouth shaped like a snake, and a tongue that was coiling. Master Eisen uses his spiritual strength to battle the monster and eventually obtain the magic stone by gathering stones from the earth. Rena told him she wanted to leave Pioneer City in the afternoon, and he agreed, noting that she had enjoyed her time there. The monster then leaves it behind and sells it to the alchemy company as a gift, making the two happy with the day's events. One morning, Master Eisen and his apprentice sat in the alchemist's garden near the guild, reflecting on the adventure they had just had there. He had seen everything mentioned in the letter. Rena was very impressed with her teacher, who always cared about his students and always remembered the questions people used to ask about her. Rena admired the teacher's attitude and was shocked to see how a strong and powerful person like Eisen cared so much about others. He explained that it was because he was a teacher. He suggested traveling to the south because there were many large cities along the way, making the journey fairly safe with well-maintained roads. He asked the student about any place she specifically wanted to see other than that place. The student replied that she was happy to go wherever her teacher wants to go, and advised them to bid Eureka farewell before leaving. Later, they ran into his student Rena, who gladly accepted Eisen's invitation. Eventually, they found themselves at the alchemist's garden's reception area, where they informed the woman behind the counter that they wanted to meet Eureka. The two are currently having tea while they set up a meeting with the company president. They recognized the man as someone they had seen before he suddenly came over and apologized for keeping them waiting. He said he was her secretary and that he would return the following day after a trip to the University of Magic. He expressed regret for any objections raised once more. "We are sorry for any hardship this has caused you, and if you accept our offer, I will be pleased to assist you as I am also going to the university." The announcement was made at the following meeting that the university guardian captain brought a report from the watchtower informing them about the fluctuations of magic power in the southern plains, but they were unable to do so. He captured the source of her magic power and asked her to use the observation tool to see the problem for herself. A carriage has been prepared at short notice to ensure your journey goes quickly. The staff of the institution he was attending used to cast a spell that formed a globe and then swung it towards the south in order to identify any source of magic, but he was unable to see any irregularities despite the magic barrier around the campus when he opened the south-facing window and observed his surroundings. Eureka was amazed by her professor's abilities as she stood next to the president. She had never witnessed such strong magic detection at such close range before, and was taken aback to find that the president appeared unwearied even after such a powerful spell. Mel informed him that she was now teaching her students this technique since she had grown accustomed to utilizing it during the battle against the evil gods. Even when she complimented its beauty, the president only chuckled and noted that acknowledgement is useless when dealing with difficulties. However, as they were speaking, an unseen shadow hovered over them, and distant footfall hinted at a sinister presence.